I'm Batman.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me! Who's got you?
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
I'm a doctor. But probably not the one you expect.
I'm Captain Kirk.
Welcome everyone to the Special Geek This Week video, and this is the Marc Singer Panel from Pensacon 2022 at the Rex Theater in downtown Pensacola, Florida. Marc Singer, popular actor who is better known as the Beastmaster from the Beastmaster movies, and also Mike Donovan from V, the miniseries, V, the Final Battle, and V, the TV series. And he also did the voice of Dr. Kirk Langstrom, Man-Bat, in Batman the Animated Series. So sit back and enjoy this panel as Marc Singer talks about his acting career, playing the Beastmaster, and much, much more. So please enjoy. And also don't forget to also check out all the other great content on the Geek This Week YouTube channel, and appreciate you guys' support. Hope you enjoyed the panel.
A lot of other credits to his name, a lot of TV show appearances, a lot of other movies. He's an incredibly talented person. He's also a songwriter and a poet. Okay, and I'd like to bring him out now, Mr. Marc Singer. He did say he does his own stunts.
Hello, everybody. How are you all? What a beautiful theater this is. This is gorgeous. We were talking backstage, and I was saying we both share apparently some tenets of acting training and development that are similar. And I was just saying, I see every theater as the possibility of what we could be doing in it right at this moment, you know. So this is a beautiful, beautiful theater. I'm so glad this wasn't torn down.
You're in kind of the downtown area of Pensacola, and this used to be a very prominent theater in its day.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Does anybody know the history of this theater? Anybody?
We came here as children, but... Yeah. And you think this is one? Too bad we don't have the Sanger open.
The Sanger is gorgeous.
That one is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
It is gorgeous. It's huge.
I think of it, in live theater, I think of it as accessibility to the audience. I don't think of it in terms of all the ornamentation and stuff like that. Because for a movie house, you know, you want elephants and palm trees and rajas and things like that. But for theater, you just want something like this where you can reach the audience and they can get back to you. That's one of the nice things about being. I'm going to stand. I can't sit here. I feel like I'm going. I don't know who that guy is. But anyway, but that's the thing I like about these venues, these cons, is that I remember when I was a kid, I don't think we had these things. There was no way of really seeing the person that you saw on film actually in the flesh. And there was no way for them to see you. And a lot of what we do is not just the identification of ourselves, but is the way that you get to be identified by us, because that really is our job. Can you hear me out here?
Yes.
So anyway, that's why I like being here as much as anything else. Is it's a chance to be together. I was telling somebody I saw so many creative outfits and so much artwork in all of the cons that I visited all through the nation and all around the world. And many of it outstrips the special effects that Hollywood puts together. So it's an amazing thing to be able to touch the community this way and be touched by you all. And so do you have a venue that you want to follow, or what do you think?
No, this is kind of an open forum. Let's just have a conversation.
I was wondering if anybody would have any questions for us?
Yes, we will do some questions. You started out as a stage actor?
That's right. I did formal training as a classical actor in Shakespeare.
Ooh.
That was my formal beginning. That's what we were talking about backstage, is that there aren't many people these days who train in the Stanislavski method. Everybody's got the kind of inner angst kind of school where everybody's looking for what it means to them inside.
So would that be Shakespeare?
Began with Shakespeare, sure, sure.
What roles?
I began, well, my first connection with Shakespeare was in the 5th grade. My dad fooled me into going to see a movie called Richard III. He said, yeah, he said it was about knights, and so I went to see it. And you know, the first half of the movie I didn't understand anything, but the second half of the movie I understood everything. And then from then on, I was hooked. I remember I went back home and began memorizing Shakespeare from an early age. So started pretty young. Yeah.
Have you ever done voice acting?
Have I ever done what?
Voice acting.
Oh, I have. Yeah. I've done Batman, and I can't remember a whole bunch of other stuff. But I'm mostly a on-screen presence. Yeah, that's what I am. Do any of you all have any questions? Any questions, any comments, any questions about my work or anything?
Yeah, we've got a question over here. I saw that hand go up first.
Can you tell us a little about your audition for Highlander, how close you came to playing the actual Highlander, and what it was like playing Evil Mortal in the first season of Highlander?
I don't, you know, there's so many stories about so many people in LA, in the Hollywood area, about roles that they may have been up for, or that people have heard that they were up for, or that people have said that they were up for. I don't remember being up for the role of the Highlander at all. I participated as a guest star when a friend of mine named Tom Wright was directing, wonderful director, who directs mostly now for CSI. So that was a role that I didn't, I don't think I auditioned for that. I think I was invited to be a member of the cast for that. I hope my memory isn't fading, although I actually do have plenty of evidence that it is. But I don't think I auditioned for the role of the Highlander. No.
How has acting changed over the course of the decades?
In my experience, acting has changed over the decades in that it's less formal. When I say less formal, I mean there is less of a structural, architectural attention paid to the craft of acting, and that everybody takes acting as a very personal thing, which it is. Everything we do in our lives is very personal, no matter what we do. We have a personal identification with it. But people imagine, I think, have become more and more to imagine that acting is something that has to do with a kind of sincerity that you work up in yourself, and that if you have the right calling, a combination of the sense of calling and this personal sense of self and sincerity will result in valuable stage expressions or screen expressions. And I think in the past, there was much more attention to acting being paid as a craft, just like woodworking or any other thing that you can think of as a craft, and that anybody could learn it, and that it produced as a byproduct art and sincerity if it was taught correctly, and of course if you had the desire to learn the craft correctly and to bring out whatever that inner sincerity of you, which we call artistry, produces. But basically the difference is that the architectural craft of acting has been, I think, watered down into a more personal experience, and that doesn't always produce great acting, but it will produce psychodrama.
So therefore you would say that films in general have changed as well as far as crafting a film, because of the acting has changed. Do you think that CGI has also changed the crafting of films as well?
I think great film acting depends still on actors who know their craft who know what they're doing. But film itself is a manipulation of images and a manipulation of situations and dialogues. And you can get a close-up on somebody, and if they look in the right way, then you can cut that together with a close-up on somebody else and put the two of them together, and it will be meaningful. But the greatest actors of today still know their craft in a very particular way, in a way that's studied, that we don't see because they make it seem as though it's so offhand and improvisational. As far as the idea of CGI and stuff like that, the only difference that I can see that CGI has on modern acting is that if you've ever seen a John Wayne film, for example, you know that these people who are riding the horses across the plains could be killed in an instant if the horse went down, and that they were able to manipulate all of the aspects of their trade and the trade that they were portraying firsthand. The explosions were real, the wagon chases and the horse chases were real. And you could go ahead across the spectrum and you could do the same for sword fighting scenes and any other kind of daring do that actors are called upon to present. And that took a certain kind of person with a certain kind of experience to generate that kind of genuineness on the screen that made us believe in him or her. There is a particular scene in a John Wayne film called, and people agree or disagree with his politics, or they say he was a fine actor or he wasn't a fine actor. He was a very scientific actor. This guy knew everything that he was doing and was very particular about how he studied his script, and that's why you hear those strange cadences where he says, well, I'll tell you something else about that, is because he meant it to be fashioned in exactly that way. It wasn't just some eccentricity. There is a film called Hondo in which John Wayne has an interplay with Geraldine Page, with whom I had the great pleasure of working once. I'll tell you a story about her in just a moment. Because it has to do with architecture, and it has to do with the control of a really great performer and a great performance. Anyway, he did this film called Hondo. And in a specific scene in this film, Hondo, while he's interplaying with her, with very few cuts, he does a complete farrier's job of shoeing a horse at the same time that he's playing a complete scene. So you have to admire that kind of ability and that kind of authenticity. I worked with Geraldine Page in a movie for television called Something for Joey, which was a film about Heisman Trophy winner. And I was on the stage, the cameras were all pointed at me, and I gave the Heisman Trophy speech that John Cappelletti gave when he received the Heisman Trophy. And out in the audience, when the cameras turned around, was Geraldine Page. And she played my mother. And at a certain point in the speech, I said, I'd like to thank my mother. Cameras on her. And as I said, I'd like to thank a tear broke from her eye and rolled down her cheek. Well, everybody in the crew who was standing around watching, they were all dabbing their eyes. It was a wonderful performance. And she said, let's do it again. And the director said, well, it's Lou Antonio was directing. He said, what's the matter? That was perfect. She said, no, let's do it again. And the makeup came and she fixed her eyes. And she said to her eye, she said, wait for your cue. And so I did the speech again, and I said, and where the tear broke on my, in the first take, I said, and of course, I'd like to thank my ma, and on the first syllable of mother, the tear broke and rolled down her cheek. And she said, that's the one. And as a young actor who didn't even know that there actually was a place called Hollywood, I'll tell you that, that was quite a lesson, humbling. Especially when you think that when I was doing The Taming of the Shrew, I was running backstage from one side to the other, thinking, oh, this is terrific. This is the show that brought me to Hollywood, was The Taming of the Shrew on stage. An old stagehand was knotting a rope back together. We're all adults here. We can use four-letter words, yeah?
Yeah.
So I came running back from one side of the stage to the other, kind of, oh yeah, I got it going on. He looked up and he said, "You're like horse shit, you're everywhere." So, what was I telling you? What was I going to say? Do anybody remember what we were talking about?
Yeah, you just.
Oh, Hollywood. So I've been working in the theater, in live theater on the stage, and my wife and I were in our little Volkswagen on our way from Seattle down to San Diego to begin work down there. And we were in San Diego, and then for some reason we had friends who lived up in Los Angeles, and they said, "You got the weekend off, why don't you come up and visit us in our little place up here in Los Angeles?" Well, sure. We jumped in the car and came driving up the freeway, the 405, that runs between San Diego and LA. And suddenly over the freeway said Hollywood, next 3 exits. Now I've been acting on stage for off and on for 5 years by that time. I turned to my wife in astonishment and I said, "There's an actual Hollywood." I didn't know there was an actual Hollywood. It never occurred to me that that was an actual little community, a suburb in Los Angeles. I thought it was a concept. And so that's the kind of journey that anybody can make to achieving whatever craftsmanship that gives them satisfaction and what degree of personal recognition and maybe public accomplishment or, acclaim, I don't know, celebrity. You can start from not even knowing the place exists where you're going to be heading. So there you go.
You're an incredibly talented person. And with the COVID shutdown, what have you been doing with your time during the shutdown?
The COVID shutdown has been a challenge, as it has for all of us. I lead a mostly reclusive life anyway, so it certainly doesn't affect my social life, but much to society's great relief. But it has also been an opportunity to pursue personal projects that I hadn't had a chance to really focus on before. So my writing has been a great source of focus for me. I'm currently struggling with a single essay on the role of Lady Macbeth. I played Macbeth about 2 years ago. Well, it's more than that now, 3.5 years ago, in Tallahassee, as a matter of fact. Were you there?
Yes.
Did you like it?
Yes.
No kidding?
Yep.
Hey, well listen, don't let me get away without having a discussion about it afterwards, okay? We don't want to take everybody else's time and talk about the particulars of a certain thing, but it's continually on my mind, so I would love to discuss it with you if you seek me out, okay? I'll buy you a picture. And you can do with it what you like. But I've been writing. Of all things, I've been struggling with this essay on Lady Macbeth, and then I also write cowboy poetry. Does anybody know what cowboy poetry is?
Yes.
Who said that?
Me.
Oh, you do. Oh, wow. Do you write cowboy poetry?
I do not write it,
Oh, okay.
but
Well,
I
you know what
wouldn't
it is?
mind hearing some.
I'll tell you. I'll give you a sample. Okay.
There we go.
This is a sample of the Christmas story as told through a cowboy's eyes, a cowpoke. It's called A Cowpoke's Christmas. And I'll just give you the start of it so you can get a sense of what cowboy poetry is like. It's in a sense, it's like folk music, only it's folk poetry. Okay, so this is an old cowpoke says, "I heard a story once about a babe born in a stall where goats was kept, and cows and mules and chickens, I recall. His mam and pap was on the run. The way the story goes, some outlaw bandit run the land, was robbing folks in droves. Don't ask me why, I didn't get that part set in my mind, but like as not, 'twas land or gold or something of that kind that causes folks to turn real mean. Who'd else be nice as pie? Causes some to use their guns and other folks to die. For land or gold were made, we're told, by the Lord or the Great Spirit, but Them that covet either will forget that in a minute and go conniving or to kill and do just awful things, and all for just a taste of wealth, though misery it brings to simple folk who labor hard to earn their daily way, like that kid's mam and pap, the one born in the stall that day. And he goes on and tells the story. And at the end, as all good tear-jerkers do, you tear and then you go on with Christmas. Boy, I got a chance to act in the theater. I'm telling you, there's nothing like it.
It tells a story, doesn't it?
Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
There's
it's very
nothing
cool.
like it. Yeah, if you give an actor a microphone or a chance to stand on a stage,
There you go.
God help us all. Anyway, now I've run again. Were we someplace? What were we talking about?
All the world's a stage.
Oh, right. Oh, and then the other thing I've been doing is also I've been composing some songs on the guitar, and also the piano has begun to open up to me in a way that it never did before. You know, there was an old skit that I saw on the Carol Burnett show. It's a standard comedy thing. She runs down the stairs hysterically, you know, with her hair all like this, and she runs over to the piano and begins playing this huge piece by Rachmaninoff, you know, something very complicated. She stops and looks out at the audience and says, "Now I know I'm going crazy. I've never played the piano before in my life." And it's sort of been like that for me, is that it's like a kind of possession. My mother was a pianist, and I did study piano a little bit when I was a kid, but I was raised in Corpus Christi. I wanted to be out in the Gulf of Mexico. Suddenly it's as though her spirit is moving through me somehow when I'm sitting before the keyboard. And things I never even could try before are suddenly occurring, and I feel her presence, and I'm very moved by that, you know. And so that's been happening, and I don't know, there have been other things. I've cured athlete's foot. That's a kind of you know what I get. Okay, anything else?
I saw this hand go up.
I wanted to find out, you tell us a lot about what you go through as an actor, you know, for your roles and all. What was it like in the Beastmaster to work with the animals? Because even though I know a lot of them are trained, they can still be unpredictable. So do you have any stories or anything that you can tell us about what it was like to work with them?
There are two, the animal stories, that's what we're talking about, right? The animal stories from the Beast, ooh, it's like a groundswell. I should have done this and run for office. Now, is this better than, this is better?
Yes.
See, if I do this, though, you can't see my every precious expression. I'm very torn by this, okay. If I stand close here, do I look like a ghoul? So, Beastmaster. There are too many stories about how extraordinary that first Beastmaster movie turned out to be, to chronicle them all. But I'll tell you one that puts me in the same category as Shirley MacLaine, whatever you think about her recollections of previous lives. The eagle was a wedge-tailed eagle, and she stood about that tall on my arm. And to a predator, it doesn't matter if compared to her you're the size of a hippopotamus. The predator sees you as lunch. That's what they did, especially birds. If anybody owns a cockatiel or a parrot or anything else, you know that they identify just with their owner. They imprint on their owner. And that's not the only person they want to be around. Everybody else is an intruder. So she never really took to me, which is okay. Although she did go way up high in the sky once and then dive down on me and tear a strip off my back. But I did, and then she walked around like a proud chicken. I showed him. And it's okay. That's, you know, she was just, but anyway, so one day I was holding her on my arm, and everybody was working around me. They were hauling cables. We were out in the middle of the desert. They were hauling cables and nailing together sets and dragging lights up and stuff like that. So it wasn't a peaceful moment. There was nothing hypnotic or seance-y about it. And she was standing on my arm. And she never looked at me during the whole show. And they said, that's what you want. You don't want the predator to look at you. Because if they look at you, then they go dinner. And so you don't want them to look at you, it's fine. You can do whatever you want. Suddenly she looked at me. She went like this. It was just getting to golden hour when the sun was dropping down and they get that beautiful lighting that every movie loves. And the sun was going down, and suddenly she went. And in that instant, I was out of my body. I had a complete astral projection into a universe different than this one, or a perception of it was different anyway. And I was away, like a skydiver jumping out of a plane. And it was ruby red everywhere, ruby red. And I was back. And she looked away. And I took that as a gift. I took that as something that she gave me. I have stories like that about Kipling, the tiger. One of the money people on the show, one of the administrative people, who was particularly hard to suffer when you're working with animals who are all spirit, and the best spirits. Bring me the cat. Bring the cat over here. I want to get a picture of the cat. Bring the cat over here. Bring the cat. Well, first of all, it's not the cat. That's Kipling. So, number one, shut up. But bring the cat over. Bring the cat. So the tiger came over and sat down, this tall, sitting down. Head was here. Chain on its collar. Looking out of the camera like this. The guy wrapped the chain around his own wrist so that he could look tough and said, "Go ahead, take a picture." And the cat's sitting there looking like this. Camera operator said, "Okay, we go. 1, 2, and when it went click, between the CL and the ICK of click, the cat jumped, bing, like this. And there's a picture of that guy flying through the air. Like that. And the cat jumped and sat down. And that's how smart they are. So, you know. Huh? I don't, but I'd have it framed if I had it. If I had it, I'd have it framed. So the cat, but they were extraordinary animals. They really were, and there was a strange feeling of some authenticity, that we had all come together at the right moment, at the right time, at the right place, to give this our best effort and to be sincere about what we were putting on film. And I think that's what makes the film enduring, with the flaws of budget and some other errors, but I think that's what gives it its lasting quality.
I saw this handed over.
I have a question.
Yeah.
During your series V, where I really watched you and Mike Donovan character, what was it like working with the other younger characters like Robert England, Faye Grant, and Delta Park, who really nobody really knew them? What was it like working with them?
The question was about the television series V, and my working experience with Robert Englund and Faye Grant and other members of the cast. And they're too numerous and too varied to particularize each one. It's funny, I was just talking about Robert Englund with somebody who asked for an autograph a few moments ago. The kindest, gentlest, sweetest, most understanding and forgiving man I think I've ever worked with. Just absolutely, I mean, as close to an angel as you can get. That guy is just absolutely lovely. What a lovely man. And after many years, you know, we don't keep in touch with each other. We're not all buddies and hang around with each other. It was a gig that we all came together to participate in. But after years and years and years, he and I ran across each other at one of these cons down in San Diego. And yeah, he was just as sweet, and even more so, and self-effacing and deferential. And here I was thinking, if one day I could be half as good, you know. So yeah, so that's Robert. And Faye is just an amazing actress. Over the years, I watched her work in other projects, and I was less familiar, of course, in those days with her work then as I am now. And what an extraordinary actress she is. She's a person of like 1,000 different characters in one single being. She's absolutely fantastic. You know, there are just too many stories like that. And we worked such long hours, and I think the longest day we spent on the set was 22 hours. So I mean, the days were long sometimes, but I think we all held up in a fairly civilized manner, especially if you consider that we're actors. Yeah.
What advice would you give someone who wanted to pursue acting?
What advice would I give someone, we'll get to you, what advice would I give somebody who was starting out acting? I so appreciate that question. I so appreciate that question, because the easy thing to do is to say, stay in school and always be good and say yes sir, no sir, no ma'am. And, it's find somebody who can teach you Shakespeare. Shakespeare, 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 Shakespeare. What do you do if you want to be a real actor? Shakespeare, 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 Shakespeare. The other way is like, I don't know, it's like going to Las Vegas and putting all your belongings on the craps table and shooting number 23 and hoping that it hits, you know? But if you really want to learn to be an actor, approach it like a craft. So who do you want to learn shipbuilding from? You learn it from the best shipbuilder that ever lived. So if you want to learn acting, who do you learn it from? The greatest playwright that ever lived, because everything else that we do was derived from Shakespeare, even the way we're talking right now. And to some people, all of civilization, all of the dominant civilization of our day was defined and set in motion by Shakespeare. You can go back and say there were all the ancient Greeks before him, but then there was a vast wasteland. Then there was a single guy, and now there's the rest of us out here. And in order to study Shakespeare correctly, you need a good teacher. And they are as few and far between as there are real Zen masters. So it's not an easy journey to find. I was fortunate to work under a man named William Duncan Ross, who was an extraordinary Shakespearean director and mentor. And upon Shakespeare's work is all my work predicated. So if you want to be an actor, sorry guys, Shakespeare.
Yes.
I'm going to date myself here. One of my all-time favorite movies is If You Could See What I Hear. Yes. Love that movie. Loved you in that movie. Do you have any, was that fun? Did you meet Tom Sullivan?
The question was about If You Could See What I Hear, a film that was filmed mainly on the east coast of Canada, around Peggy's Cove in Newfoundland. And it was like being on vacation every day. We had to convince ourselves that we were actually making a film. It was the sunlight off the water was fantastic. The lobster sandwiches were $1.69. It was just heaven on earth, and Sherry Belafonte was a joy to work with, and R.H. Thompson is an actor that we don't know so much about here in the United States, but what a joy. You know, one of the best things about being, one of the best things that happens to us, right, on the stage, is when we work with people who are compatible, and whose work ethic is the same as our work ethic, and whose sense of humor and understanding and patience equals our own, and everybody gets together and we have a good time and produce a good product and laugh all the way through.
Great chemistry.
It's great chemistry is what it is. And that's what we had then, if you could see what I hear. You wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, about your role in Batman. You talk about sincerity in acting. How do you go about connecting yourself to such a horrific character?
Some of that I said it's about Dallas, right? What'd you say? You have to really yell, because I'm not kidding. I'll spend the rest of my day going like this.
About your role in Batman.
On Batman. Batman, Dallas, they sound exactly alike, don't they? I'm not embarrassed. I'll talk to you later.
You talk about sincerity, putting sincerity in your characters. How do you go about putting sincerity in such a horrific piece?
Sincerity in your characters, such as your character in Batman.
Is it? Thank God you're here. Can we please travel together?
Sure.
I'm not sure what it is about Batman that makes you question why sincerity would be different in that than in something else. Is it because it's animated and voice only?
Well, horrific character.
Oh, horrific characters?
Mm-hmm. Sincerity in a horrific character.
I know, I heard it. I just forget where I am. It doesn't matter who you play. It doesn't matter who you play, because they were written by humans. So whoever put whatever it is of their own creative talents and constructions, understanding the construction into it, it's going to be human. It doesn't matter if all you do is snarl all the time. It doesn't matter. You'll be doing it in the place that it says on the script, and then the beast snarls. And that's one of the things about acting that I'd like to impress, is that acting, many people think that acting is emotional first, and then intellectual afterwards. It's not. It's intellectual first, creating a byproduct of emotion that's concomitant to the intellect that goes into it, the understanding that goes into it. If you're walking down the street and you get stung by a bee in real life, you may go, what is it, says your friend. I don't know, my neck, something's on my neck. Oh, you got stung by a bee, get it off, get it off, get it off. So emotion comes first in life sometimes, and intellect follows. But everything in movie and script, and in script for stage or anything else, it's written right there on the page. Two guys are walking down the street, one gets stung on the neck by a bee and says, ow, 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 and the friend says, what's the matter, what's the matter, what's the matter? He says, something's on my neck. So the rules apply no matter who you're playing or in what circumstance or what genre. The same rules apply of architecture and craftsmanship. Okay? That's why the best scripts follow logically, and they don't say too much. Guy doesn't say, I know it's very dangerous to go up to the castle and try to rescue the princess, but I'm going to go do it no matter what the odds are. I want you to stay here, and no matter what, only come if I... No. The best script says, I'm going to go get her. And the other guy says, you'll never make it. He says, I have to try. That's the scene.
Another question? Hand in the back?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Hey, Mark. Big fan. I've probably seen your movie Beastmaster over the years, more than I can count. It's a good movie. And I wanted to know, were you up against any major celebs for that part? Did you get it right off the bat? Did you have to,
Was I up for what?
For Beastmaster, was you up to the part? Were you going up against other actors like a Richard Gere or
you mean for the specific role of Beastmaster?
Yeah, was you chosen right on the spot? Or
There were other actors who were up for the role. I never saw them. I never knew who they were. I was the Don Coscarelli, who directed Beastmaster, had seen me in The Taming of the Shrew, Shakespeare. And it was from that, based on that he called me in, and we had a series of meetings over a space of time, maybe a week and a half, I guess, 2 or 3. And then he was confirmed in his opinion that I was the guy to play the role, and that's how that happened. That's not usual, but it's not unusual either. In getting the role of Mike Donovan, I never even got a chance to read. Kenny Johnson, who was the auteur, the director, producer, writer, called me in front of Brandon Tartikoff, who was at that time, I think, the president of NBC. And he said, watch this. He said, do you have your lines? And I said, yeah, I have my lines. So he took his script, and he said, Mike Donovan. He said, what is it with you? And then I went, and then he read my lines. And then he says, oh, he says. And then he said, oh yeah? Well, you'll never get away with it, Mike Donovan. And then he says, and then he read my other lines. And then he pushed me out the door. And as he pushed me out the door, I heard him saying over my shoulder, isn't he great? So, auditions take very many different forms.
Let me guess, Petruchio?
Petruchio. Yeah, if you look it up on YouTube or something like that, you'll see, if you do Marc Singer Taming of the Shrew, you'll see bits and pieces of it.
Hand over here.
Did you ever have a favorite prop that you used during a show or a movie or anything like that that you just thought was really cool and actually maybe kept it or anything?
A favorite prop?
Yeah. Everybody, that you really
Did you ever
liked,
swipe
enjoyed
anything
using
from a
or
set?
anything along that line?
I have one of the original V pistols, one of the Reagans. I have one of those. That may be the only prop per se that I have. I'm not the brightest candle in the chandelier, so I probably should have been collecting these a long time ago. But when I'm through with the show, I'm through with the show. I'm ready to move on. But that would be probably the most notable of any souvenir or anything like that. I worked with Mark Hamill on the show once, and he said, we're being paid so little on this show. He said, I would rather they gave me a toaster. He said, so that every time I had toast in the morning, I could remember it. He said, because the money that they're paying us, he said, that will be gone in a moment. He said, but the toaster will always be there.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Yes.
If you could spend 24 hours with someone, real or fictional, past or present, who would it be and what would you do with them? Philosophical moment.
Well, that's that kind of question, like, if you could go back into an actual Jurassic era and be safe and run around among the dinosaurs, would you like to do that? Of course, on the one hand, the answer is yes, but on the other hand is, the first bug that bit you, you'd blow up like a balloon and die. So we imagine going back and being with people and spending time that wouldn't be too burdensome to them, not to us. But it would be also challenging to us because we wouldn't know exactly how to approach those people. So I would say, of course, sorry, boring, Shakespeare, but then I wouldn't particularly know how to address him. What I would probably like to know is how he did what he did. I have heard from some unconfirmed, I can't say that it's scientifically proven, it's unconfirmed report, that he wrote pretty briskly, to be or not to be, that is a question, whether it is noble in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows. Sounds pretty good. Of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles by opposing in them, to die to seek them. That he wrote kind of like that, with very few scratchings out. And I'd like to see that. John Wayne.
John Wayne?
John Wayne.
What would you talk about, or what would you do?
I wouldn't play him chess. I hear he was hell on the chessboard. I think I'd just like to. I'd like to spend some time in the company of the Ford players and see them work together and get a sense of what that's like. Yeah. Because they never. If you see a Western these days, it's not uncommon for the two cowboys meeting in town to get off their horses and go walk over to each other and have a conversation. But in the John Wayne films, they rode their horses while they talked. They rode them in circles. They rode them up, they rode them down, they rode them this or that, had scenes going on. And the horses contributed to the emotional intensity of the scene and corresponded in their behaviors to the emotional intensity of their riders. And so the expertise of the players was evident in the commonplace and acting of the moment. And so I admire that greatly. I admire the hands-on approach. In Beastmaster, we have a taste of that in the Beastmaster because I never knew who it was that was going to be swinging a sword opposite me. You think, well, it's all choreographed, you know. Well, it is to a certain degree, but if somebody misses a cue, you could lose your fingers. Or some people have a choppier way of moving, whereas other people are more fluid. And some people use more force than is necessary, and you have to actually defend yourself. Some people get very excited. In V, I had a simple gag rigged up where I was going to reach for a pistol as the bad guy enters. The camera was going to be here, and all he had to do was sink his knee, go like this with his knee, and then I would fly away, and the pistol would go flying, and then he would capture me. So they said, action. I reached for the pistol as the door opened. He came in, forgot everything that he was supposed to be doing. He was a much bigger man. Held me down, and then broke 3 ribs. Oh. And the next day I had to do a big fight over a pickup truck and all that kind of stuff with 3 cracked ribs. But guys like to be knocked around a little bit once in a while too. That's what it's like to be a guy. And so on the one hand it's a nuisance, but on the other hand that reality in a sense gives you bragging rights. And as a career goes by, part of what you're seeing here in this presentation is a guy with a modicum of bragging rights. You see what I mean? And that's one of the things that we admire about the people that we see. We go, wow, look at that. You know, so that comes with the territory too.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, our time for this panel is up.
Same here.
Well, thank you for coming to the panel. Thank you, Marc Singer. All of you for the VIPs coming in the lobby, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.